Ready for the mosh pit, Shaka Bra.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to StrangeCast Player One vs. World's Life is Strange fan podcast. This is StrangeCast X Lost Records Journal, the Patreon episode special that we have. I'm one of your co-hosts, Adnan and Adam. My co-host Adam Evol is here. Adam, you here?
I am here, and I have an unhealthy obsession with Johnny Galvatron.
You do have an obsession. You have a weird obsession with him. We all have a weird obsession with him. But no, we're back, Adam. So this is our second Patreon episode. This is our second Patreon episode that we've done since we've launched the Patreon. We obviously did like a Lost Records and StrangeCast separate ones, but instead we're going to combine it. It just makes a lot more sense rather than trying to separate the topics because everything comes under one. In principle, it's the same amount of time that you'll have, same amount of episodes. It's just done in a better formatting, so it's kind of a bit of a crossover. So before we start as well, if you are new here, please do consider dropping subscribe to the channel, turn notifications, like the video, share your friends. We're at 2,000 subscribers. If you can help us get to 2,100, that would be amazing. And also as well, StrangeCast is available on all podcast services. So we're available on Spotify with a video version. Apple Podcasts are available on everything. So go and check us out via those services. You can download the episodes as soon as they become available. You can get instant access to them whenever they go. And also as well, please rate us on Spotify. We have 50 plus ratings now, which is amazing. And also as well, we have over 325 followers on Spotify. So if you can rate us and follow us, that would be amazing. So Adam, we're going to our Patreon. So anyone who is new here, just for a reason as well, we have a Patreon. You can support us via there. There are some tiers as well for interviews and among many other things. I think I might be able to tease one of the interviews coming up, I think, at this point. We have interview like incentives on there. We have like Patreon incentives, and this one is, for example, one of the episodes per month is built via Patreon, so you can submit topics via that, and we just talk about it. It can be anything and everything that you want, as much as we can try and answer it. Adam, we got quite a few questions here. Should we go in straight into our first one?
Oh yeah, I bet that they're all from different people, and it's all a variety of sorts. Yes,
I agree with you. Yes, and also they are from the two people that share the same names. They're both from Kevin's, so it's
it's
double
like
Kevin
another
attack.
Kevin
Yeah.
episode. Oh, I hate Kevin's. Yuck.
So we're going to try and go through as many questions as possible. We're just going to go upwards, and there's like quite a few, so we'll just go and work our way through them as much as we can in our time slot. So Adam, start off with a bit of a different one. Kevin Kestis asked, start with what do you guys think about Mafia, the old country?
I have zero opinion. I played Mafia 3 for a little bit. Also Mafia 2.
Yeah.
I don't know what about the Mafia series that it should resonate with me. It really should, because again, I'm from the East Coast, like I'm from Philly, and I lived in New York. I know that Mafia 3 was taking place in Louisiana, I want to say.
Is it Miami?
I forget, but like it should be like, and I loved, The Godfather. I loved, see, I love these movies, but I'm very tired. I had a 12-hour shift last night. But yeah, Goodfellas. I was thinking of No Country for Old Men. I'm like, no, different movie. What I'm trying to say is like, I love the themes of Mafia, but I've never really connected with the Mafia series. Have you?
So the main one I've played, I'm just double checking Mafia 3. It's in New Bordeaux.
Oh yeah. Yes.
I played Mafia 3. That's the only one I've really played. I've always been a big fan of the like gangster games. I think like The Godfather on PlayStation 2 was always a classic for me, and The Godfather Part 2 is a game. I really enjoyed it. I would 100% be kind of the Mafia player. But the problem is when I played Mafia 3, I got it via PlayStation Plus, the Definitive Edition. And my word, there were so many bugs in that game. Like it really like impacted my playthrough. I think like it's almost impossible to get one of the trophies unless you do like a really weird like patch thing that you have to do like via codes and stuff. Because I was trying to get the platinum and I got basically cheated out of the platinum right near the end because they've patched it so many times the game that the latest patch that they did, Hangar 13, you can't get the platinum unless you do something a bit like where you have to like reinstall another patch and then get it via that, because the game just crashes. I think like one of them, you have to play it in a certain way. Oh no. So if I remember correctly, basically on path to getting one of the trophies, you cannot turn off your PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 4 during it. So more or less you have to play Mafia in its full entirety, because if you save the game, it soft resets everything. So you can't save it and log out of it. You have to play the entire game in one full swoop to basically get one of the trophies, because it's the only time all your save data is registering. And if you don't do that, and you basically and sorry, if you try and do that, because I did it in one playthrough, I tried to get to the end of the game just playing it through without even turning my PlayStation off. The game crashed, because it's almost impossible to play the game without it crashing. It will crash at one point or another in certain points. And I was like, right, I'm done here. I was like, you can't bother patching the game properly. I have no interest in playing the series. So at the moment, I don't really care about Hangar 13's games or what they make with it 2K. It's like, if Mafia is free on PlayStation Plus, I'll play it. If I'm buying it, no.
I will say that I do appreciate the price point of it being $50 though. Like,
I agree.
We're in a place where it's just like, oh well, we have to charge $80. We have to. Us at 2K, we're broke. Help us at 2K games. We're broke, please. So I do appreciate that it is $50 though. So, to answer your question, I'm indifferent.
Yeah, I'm kind of indifferent. Hangar 13 would have to win me back, but I'm not. I'm one of those kind of places with like Ubisoft where it's like, if they're willing to patch their games and make them work properly, then I'll play them. But I don't really have that much care for 2K either. We put out some very weird products at times as well, quality wise. So I do like the genre. I do like the game. I do like the experience. But it's just like, you know, if that Mafia free game left a bit of a bad taste in my mouth. The game was good. It was really enjoyable, and the story was cool, and yada yada yada. But the way it was like playing at the end of it is like, no.
Yeah.
So that's our opinion on Mafia 3. Adam, should we move into our next one as well? I think this is from Kevin again. Kevin K.
Kevin K. Okay.
As you can see that. So Kevin again has asked, when I first played Life is Strange, I never suspected Mr. Jefferson till it was too late. So that also is in reference to the fact. Well, I think it's more in the reference of the 4th episode anniversary is coming up. I think actually, I think it's tomorrow. We're recording this. We're recording on the 27th, aren't we? And I think Darkroom came out on the 28th, if I'm correct, which I'm trying to double check whilst I'm typing and stuck behind this thing. It was out on the 28th. Yeah, so tomorrow is the anniversary. So I think he was alluding to that.
But yeah, like that's the beauty about that game, and I still believe that after it was Jefferson, you replay that game and you still see the beauty about it. It's still a twist. It's still something that you see coming, but you also don't. And I think that this is why the Life is Strange series has come to a halt, because the original creators are not really involved in what the series is. What made Life is Strange so good is the writing, is the creation, is the aspect. It's not the brand of Life is Strange, right, that makes it work. It's the writing. It's not like, I'm trying to think of a good example where it kind of just like switched developers and it still works. I mean, look at Call of Duty. Like, it's not like Call of Duty. Call of Duty, the brand, you go from like 3 different studios. It's all kind of the same kind of product, in terms of story, in terms of, I know they're different kinds of stories. Like Raven Software, the fact that they got laid off. Raven is a legendary software company and legendary developers. If you haven't played, oh, see, I'm dying out here. But they have one game that I keep praising, and I just can't remember it. Singularity. You have to play Singularity. That's from Raven. Masterpiece. What I'm trying to say here is that, like, because the original creators weren't involved in later entries into the Life is Strange series, that's why the stories kind of blow. Let's put it.
Yeah.
Compared to the first Life is Strange game. But yeah, I think that's why Lost Records hit so hard in terms of like individual truths and weird endings, let's put it. So yeah, you just lost that spark when you just kind of made Life is Strange a brand rather than a creative story.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on, because I think we talked about this when we did a True Colors review and stuff, and I think I very much sussed out as Jed was going to turn on Alex, because it was setting itself up as like, well, there's Jefferson 2.0, and I've always said that with like True Colors. It's a good game. I enjoyed it as well, but it felt too safe. and it was again
Yes.
playing too much into Life is Strange 1's hand. All of them have. The mainline Deck 9 entries, barring Before the Storm, have played into Don't Nod's games. Like even, for example, Double Exposure with the Maya Okada storyline, trying to imitate Victoria Chase at points, and like, you know, Rachel Amber and all these other elements. They try. And the beauty with Jefferson is that he's just part of the story. He's not the overarching part of it. And he's just like one of those like lurkers. It's like a drama. I'd probably say if I watch it, it'll be like Twin Peaks, like the drama, where it's like a plot device that's waiting to happen, but it's not necessarily the most important part of it. And it has that kind of like Scream style murder mystery to it, where it's like, who's the killer? And it's like, we don't really know who the killer is. And it's very hard to suss it out because there's a red herring almost every other corner, but the red herring is very believable whilst you quickly change your attention away from things. So it's like Jefferson's there, and then he will disappear, and then someone else comes into the picture, and then the story continues to move on, and it's moving into different directions and realms where it takes your attention away from solving one of the overarching themes, which is who killed Rachel Amber and the murder mystery element within that. And yeah, you're right with Lost Records. That's why the originality feels differently with Lost Records. And it feels like Life is Strange has basically chased that first entry since its inception, and Square Enix has just failed to replicate it because it just can't move on from the series, accept a new direction, and kind of go down an original route. And it's really trying to capture a lightning in the bottom moment. And Jefferson was lightning in the bottom moment because it's like not many people caught that in the first instance. You can go back and play the game, you can see all the hints, you can see all the foreshadowing, but it's done in such a clever way where it's not always the central thing. And that's an issue with True Colors as well, because like True Colors is all about the Typhon storyline and also Gabe's death, and it doesn't do enough to take the attention away from that and then to move on to just Alex and other parts of the story. It's always about who killed Gabe and then also the Typhon storyline. So you're basically playing a murder mystery game at that point. And it's the same with, for example, who killed Safi in Double Exposure. You're going down the same route of playing a game where that's meant to be the central theme of the game rather than it being a supporting mechanic for the rest of the story. And they don't have that same punch effect. I mean, in Double Exposure, they don't explain what actually happens in the end, but like that's what it is. So yeah, I enjoy that twist. It's lasted a long time, and yeah, it turns 10 years on 28th of July. We're recording the 27th as well, so it's quite nice for it to fall on that anniversary. Classic moment. Really, really crazy, and great way to end the episode as well with his face lingering over. It's like, it's like, what an episode! Yeah. I still think this is the best episode in the series. My personal feeling.
End it with his face like looking over you, and they don't try to be like, Jefferson, it was you all along, and they say, yes, Max, it was me, Max. Like it was just literally like, take it in. It was Jefferson, and the episode, like that less is more kind of situation.
Yeah, it's very Lost-esque as well. That it has that punch effect at the end of the episode. Yeah. And just the way it ends, where it's like if their face lingering and stuff. I remember scenes in Lost where it would just end with someone like looking there. It's kind of like give you a bit of a revelation. It's like, oh, lips are being tasted here. We're going to a finale, and it was very exciting at the time, and it's something that's very exciting now when you see it. It's like, oh, actually, that was a very, very smart twist, and it's so obvious that it's meant to be him, but it's not him. They just do enough to hide that, and I think that's the smart thing with that game.
Yeah, no, it's a great game. Absolutely great game.
For sure. Should we move into our next one, Adam?
Let's do it.
So our next one, Adam, is from Kevin Lackner on Patreon. Ooh. And Kevin put here, what's your favorite Life is Strange fan theory? Maybe one that came true and one that didn't come true, not including Pompidou.
Can I see that question one more time?
Yes, I can. You could have said that before I closed it. God damn it.
Well,
as you can see there. What's your favorite ever Life is Strange fan theory? Maybe one that came true and one that didn't come true, not including Pompidou.
Well, screw you, Kevin Lackner.
I mean, you can also include probably your own fan theory as well.
Okay, so like I say this all the time though. Like I'm not really a theory guy. Like I'm not really a conspiracy theory or like any kind of like, oh, what if this? Like it's not that I disagree with a lot of theories. It's just kind of like I don't know. Like what's a fan theory that you can think of?
My only one was about, well, one of my favorite ones was about Rachel Amber potentially having powers, but that's very much because of Before the Storm. Like otherwise, like, she is just a plot device in the first game. She is basically Laura Palmer equivalent of we drive the narrative forward. But because of Before the Storm, they seem to like almost allude that she might have powers in some way, shape, or form. I'm kind of glad that didn't happen, actually, especially when the older I get, I'm like, it just makes it's a little bit like as a kind of idea. But I think that was the kind of one that I had where it's like, is Rachel Amber somehow connected to some kind of supernatural element that also kind of ties in with her potentially being the doe? But she's not the doe, though. She's obviously she's not a doe. Like, I think Max's spirit animal is the doe. It's that was another theory that I really enjoyed, where it's like trying to decide out who the doe's spirit animal is, whether it's Max or Rachel. It very much is probably Max's because it's on her shirt. You know, the doe guides her at different points in the game. It does hover over Rachel's grave in the first game, but it's like, you know, it's guiding Max, so it feels like it's connected to her. But the Rachel Amber one was my favorite one. But I kind of like really enjoyed that. But then it's like it's hard to do it because, again, we just bounced off that last question you said about developers and switching. It changes the story integrity in the route, because like the other one that I would have found interesting would have been if Rachel Amber wasn't having a thing with Frank, and that was just kind of like word of mouth chattering in the town, and it was just this perception that was built around her. But again, this is where my feelings and that those kind of theories and stuff have changed because of Before the Storm, because before that, that's probably not going to happen because that's not the Don't Nod vision for the character.
You bring up a good point that, like, I think Life is Strange one of the, like, the harder franchises to have a fan theory of, because it just switch hands so many times. It goes from Don't to Deck 9 to a different team in Deck 9. Or like now like the whole team is laid off from the Deck 9 team that did True Colors. So
Double
it's
exposure.
What's that?
Double exposure.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Double exposure. But yeah, no, it's hard to come up with like a fan theory for something that switches hands so many times. So it's like, you can have all the fan theories you want, but it won't stay consistent to any of the stories. And I think that's why a lot of people are kind of upset with the canon of the game, because it just switches so much, and everybody's like, well, I have my own theory, I'm gonna do this. Again, we can bring up Double Exposure, where they said that, like, oh, Chloe either dies or they grew apart. No, that doesn't happen, you know? Or even like take Emma Vicelli's comic series. Like, it's all different visions, right?
Yeah.
And all of them try to keep the same canon, but everything is just so off the ways. Now we're in a different comic creator. So it's all switching hands. So I don't know. Also, like I said, I don't think I've ever been like a theory person. I've never really been like that. I'll always watch the videos. I'll watch videos of like people coming up like things you missed in The Matrix or something like that. I'll watch it. I'll be interested. Like, oh, that's a neat theory. But for me personally, I don't really follow it.
I have a fine line with theories, though, because I like the theory ideas where it delves into certain elements. So within the Matrix, you can delve in certain theories about certain characters. But I don't like theories that are based on story elements that drive things forward. So you saw it, for example, between episode 4, Darkroom, and Polarized, the reception that happened with that, because Polarized was not received very well. It was a very polarizing reception. But it was like that because people had created so many fan theories for how the game played out, and it didn't play out the way that they wanted. And it's the same between Lost Records Tape 1 and Tape 2, because like I don't mind fan theories about certain elements that can like flesh out things, but it's when people project a story ahead and it's like, well, that's an amazing story. They should have done that. It's like, no, they shouldn't have done that, because that's not Michelle's vision or the Don't Nod vision or the Deck 9 vision. Like, if it's that easy, you make the game. Like, you're just taking their stories and their ideas and running off of that. And that's not really helpful in that situation. You should like be making theories about certain elements. Like the theory about Cat being a witch is interesting, but it's not about like, you know, when people are making theories about this is how the game should end it. Because it's like, well, no, because that's not how the game is meant to end. Like in their vision, that's just your idea for it. There's also limitations and all those other things that we always forget about what game developers do. Fan theories are interesting, but it has to be certain levels of where I do it. I want to like talk about certain characters and certain interests. I've done it with Metal Gear, where it's like, you know, the theories are really quite interesting on certain characters, but not necessarily like oh, this is what happens in this part of the story. I'm like, no, unless Kojima's writing it, I'm not interested. The same with Michelle writing it, I'm not interested. It's like, they have to be told from those visions creators because they're the ones that are driving it. I saw people try to do it with the Lost Records one. It's like, but that's not what Michelle was telling you though. It's like that's his story and his style, and it's going to come across as that. And whether you like it or not, that's difference where you can critique things. But for me personally, I like theories on a very smaller level where it's like, where you can open things up, but then they can kind of get a bit mishmashy, and then you can kind of like lower your expectations if certain things happen. I would love to do theories about double exposure, but unfortunately, that game's just not going to be able to do it because of the way that the game came out, and the way the stories have been told. I saw people make the story about like Omni Max and the third timeline in double exposure. And I'm like, all interesting. Like they wish this was the setup for it because that might make sense, but I'm like, that's not going to play out unless they retcon it in. It's just not going to happen. So that third timeline doesn't make any sense because it's not meant to make sense. It doesn't add anything to the story. It's just there as a collectible.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is interesting. It is interesting. You kind of get interested in the fandoms, but I don't get too hung up on one theory because I think then you set yourself up for a little bit of like a disappointment for what happens next. It's like I kind of float and see what people are saying more than that.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm like, I enjoy other people's theories more than my own. So I'll hear other fan theories, but like, yeah, I don't really have any favorites in terms of fan theories.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I completely agree. Should we go into our next question? It's an interesting question,
Let's do
actually,
it.
this one.
Yeah.
So we're sticking with the Kevin motif, and is Kevin Lackner taking over here. So Adam,
Here we go.
a big theme in Life is Strange is the natural beauty of the game, in my opinion. The snow in DE was cool at the beginning, but it's ultimately the worst entry for natural beauty. Would you agree?
A big theme of Life is Strange is the natural beauty in the snow in DE was cool in the beginning, but ultimately was it? What? So okay, so a big theme in Life is Strange, like is natural, but the snow in DE ultimately was the worst entry. Oh, okay,
Do you see
gotcha.
what he's
Worst
saying?
entry.
There we
Okay,
go.
I thought you meant the snow was the worst entry in Life is Strange. I'm like, what are you talking about? The snow is, but it's like DE. Yeah, no. So let's go into the like let's go into
So
the history. Yeah.
yeah, so for context for people, what he's saying there, and very specific, he's saying that the natural beauty of the games is very important in Life is Strange. You look at Arcadia Bay, Haven Springs, the Diaz brothers on the road, even the Erickson household snow, and then double exposure in Caledon. But what he's saying is that the snow is very impactful on the environment because Caledon is it's a winter game, so it's all snow. So you see it when, for example, Max is chasing through other Max, i.e. Safi, through the snow. Caledon is just filled with snow at a lot of points, so you don't see quote unquote the natural beauty outside of the snow. That's what he's saying. He's saying
Yeah.
is that the worst entry because of like that element within the game.
So once again, we go back into what's wrong with Life is Strange and why it changes hands so much. I say this all the time. What was Michel Coe's first job in Donut? He was an environmental artist. Like he knows how to create an environment, which is why Life is Strange. It's why Life is Strange 2, like going through all of those West Coast environments. It's why Lost Records, like that the whole vibe of it. He knows how to create an environment. But because Life is Strange 1, Life is Strange 2, these are very impactful for environmental design. A lot of people try to, let's say, it synthetically copy Michel Coe's vision, and that's why it doesn't really work, right? The more times, and I think that's the whole theme of this episode that we're talking about, is that the Life is Strange shouldn't be a franchise, shouldn't be a brand. It should be what it is. It's what Michel Coe designed. So because of his background, yes, it worked. But yeah, the snow in DE in double exposure, the snow in that, it was a good vibe, sure, but like there's a certain style that you can't really match. In the same way that like as much as I want to be Olivier de Riviere in my music, I will never be Olivier. I'll never be that. That's not like a discouragement on myself, but he has his style. He is God tier. He is God walking amongst men. I am just a person, right?
Yeah,
What I am trying to say is like without downgrading myself, I'm not going to be him. I will never match his style. As much as
yeah.
I try to copy it, let's say, I'm not going to be Olivier. So I think that's why later entries don't really work. The more you try to be Michel's style of environmental design, the less you're going to like impact the player with that environment.
Yeah, color palette is a very important thing, and you see it when you look at Lost Records and the way that the way that Velvet Cove is stylized, and then also like even when Swan is walking through the forest, and you can like see where the heat map is like appearing in your like mind, where it's like warm and vibrant, and people are looking at things and like, oh, that's amazing. And that's an important thing, as you said. Michel's background is massively from art. He has a massive team of artists that are working on his games, from Life is Strange to Lost Records, and it shows. It would be like, for example, taking the snow from DE and putting it in True Colors in Haven Springs. You'd immediately downtone the game and the color palette that's giving from it, because Colorado looks. I remember people playing True Colors and be like, I really want to visit Colorado now and look at the way that they've designed certain things, because it obviously is heavily inspired by Colorado, because it is based.
Yeah.
The game is based on that, where Deck Nine's at least based in. And you can see the colors stand out, and it's rich and it's vibrant and stuff like that. And DE, so the DE is a bit of an interesting one, because obviously if you look at the way that the town is like the Caledon University is laid out, it's laid out like Arcadia Bay and Blackwell. So it works like a Blackwell system. And then they put snow around it. And I think there are certain parts of DE that do work well. I think, for example, the opening shot of the game is very good in terms of Max coming into the room. When she like opens up, she puts the crowbar down, and then she like lifts her head up, and you see it's Max. Now that's a really good scene, and it's like the color palettes work well within that scene in the bowling alley. But when you get outside and it's cold and it's snow, and then the colors keep changing. So, for example, there's like a lot of scenes where it's dark, and it's like, um, it's constantly like the tones keep changing. So I think like the only time where you see color and it's really vibrant within double exposure is when you're in the snapping turtle, or you're in certain buildings within the actual campus. And other than that, it's a lot of snow, and it kind of eliminates the natural beauty of standing outside and looking at things in double exposure, which is probably to its detriment, where you aren't taking the full appreciation of the environment. When you're setting a winter game up, you need to balance it out, and you create like synthetic environments where the color
Yeah.
palette increases. It makes you feel a bit more vibrant, because otherwise double exposure does that thing where it comes across as one tonal, where it's very dark, it's very moody in terms of a game, and it doesn't give you a lot of like kind of like a sense of kind of like, let's explore this. And I think even psychologically there might be an argument if it's very snowy and it's cold outside, and you're looking at the game, you're like, do I really want to stand out here as much and like start exploring the environment? Because it's like, what else is happening here? It's like snow is covering everything. It's like, what are you going to do here? Um, so I think like ultimately, yeah, I don't think it's got the best color palette at all, because I think it's just very limited, because it doesn't change. Like they should have melted the snow quite a few. They should have moved the calendar in Caledon. They should have done it over a period of time where the calendar
Yeah.
keeps changing, and you sell for early spring, and you get rid of all the snow, and you kind of move from there. But again, the limitations there when you set up a snow game. So ultimately, it has its limitations. But I think do you know what? Like, it wouldn't surprise me if they were setting the snow up because of the Safi storyline, because how she gets killed, and it's like, oh, there's gunshot in the darkness, and it's like, where did that come from? And there's no footprints, and it feels like, like a lot of the motif was there for it. It's like even when you find her body and it's got all the flowers that are growing out afterwards after she's died, you're kind of sitting there like, why are the flowers growing out the snow? And it feels like they wanted the snow
Yes.
there just to kind of help amplify that message. And it's like it also
And
comes at
that's
a
what
bit
I
of a
mean.
risk.
It's a synthetic environmental design. And I'm not trying to say that the environmental designer for that game um can't match ever. Like you're never going to be Michelle Coe. I'm just saying
Yeah,
it's like I think they're going to try too hard to do such a thing. You know, like just be you, just be its own game. I really do think that if Double Exposure wasn't a Life is Strange game, it would have been a better game if you weren't trying to
yeah,
like really stuff down this franchise into this game that could have been um probably it could have been like another like Don't Nod-esque game, but
yeah,
instead it just became a mess, you know.
yeah. No, for sure. I completely agree with you. I think that's there are limitations when you do something like this. I think this was like one of those things that you can have more of a bigger conversation with, where it's like this impacts the game, because it's the same with when you point out Tessa Rose Jackson's music. Like amazing. I think she's a wonderful artist. But it's like the music that's on the soundtrack is limited, like what they did, where it's like it's upbeat, all of it. It's like dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
And it needed that kind of like besides illusions, it needed just like another song where it pulls you down a little bit, makes it a bit more
Yeah.
somber in certain places. So I think like balance is essentially what's missing from Double Exposure, like in terms of at least in the environment, because I think it could have worked had you balanced things out. And I think that's where a lot of it kind of like shifts into one direction, and that's not necessarily a good thing. You want a kind of constant vibes, constant things. And this is just from me seeing different games and like what I've played in my lifetime. You know, you want Gears of War 2 Jacinto and a massive, amazing like utopia that's being built in, for example, the game of Gears of War 2, but then you also want the dark side of the hollow where you're going into it. Same with Matrix, Zion. It looks like hopeful. It looks like a small underground city, and you also want the machine city where it's like dark and you see the real world and etc. So all very important nonetheless. Adam, should we go into our next question?
Oh yeah, let's do this, dude.
Indeed. So yeah, again, going to Kevin Lackner. Kevin is taking over. Adam, if a new Life is Strange entry was centered around Max, main character, what would you like the new story to be? Or if you had full creative control, what story would you tell?
I if I had to, like, is this kind of like gun to my
Yes,
head?
yes. Kevin Lackner is holding a gun to the right side of your temple, and Kevin Kestis is holding one to the left side. And they're like,
God,
Adam, write the story.
okay, so barring the fact that like I hope to die someday soon. So barring that fact, I'm like, oh yeah, pull the trigger, buddy. Um, uh, because here's the problem with that. Like I wouldn't at all because Life is Strange's story was just so collective, and this goes back into what I've been saying, that like that's why Force Unleashed 2 was so bad, because you're just continuing a story that shouldn't be continued. I think Emma Vicelli did great in the comic series of just saying that, like, hey, this is how we continue the story, and this kind of like this is one way we could do it.
Yeah.
Uh if I had to, I really do like the way Emma Vicelli did it. It's just kind of like an aftermath, especially in Dust, where you're kind of visiting the ghosts of your past kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
Uh
Yeah, I think yeah, go on.
I would say I would not put Max on the East Coast if it's in the West Coast. If anything, I would put Max back in, because that's the problem. It's just like once you make a story about Max, you're really setting yourself up for like which one is canon, right? Because if I
Yeah.
I was just about to say, like, I would put Max back in Seattle. You know what I would do actually? I would make a prequel for Max. I
Oh.
would probably make a prequel in a way of just like her time in Seattle, right?
Mm.
And like getting all these texts, because as we saw in Farewell, right? Like, Chloe kept texting Max, and Max was just kind of like aloof, right? Just saying like not the farewell, but the whole before the storm. You look through Chloe's text, and I would
Yeah.
just kind of make like the prequel for Chloe, and then also you have the prequel for Max. Like what happened with that friendship, right? And it
Yeah.
all kind of like we meet in the middle of Life is Strange, right?
Mm.
I think stories like that really do. As much hate as some people have for Rogue One that I don't understand, and because Adnan just hates everything, he probably hates Rogue One as well.
Got Mads Mikkelsen in it.
Yeah, there you go. Um, British people just hate everything. I don't know what it is. It's something
We
in
don't
their teeth.
hate things. We criticize things and things that are just slop, which Americans enjoy eating. You enjoy eating slop.
You've been to Texas. You know how
Exactly.
much slop we eat. Um,
Exactly.
but yeah, I do think that like prequel stories, if done correctly,
Mm.
can add more to the mix. Again, with Rogue One, I think it
Yeah.
kind of adds to uh episode 4, right? I think it kind of adds to that story of like setting up context for it. And I think if we made a prequel for Max in her time in Seattle, right? And her time away from Chloe, and
Yeah.
how she's like struggling with her own self-identity, Oh, and even going into Max's parents, I think that would be an interesting story to tell.
No, I think those are interesting. Because he, like you said, I think when you go forward, you create problems, and then I think prequels are probably the more logical ones. I think even, you know, it was this in order. Did Thomas Harris write Silence of the Lambs first, and then he wrote Red Dragon, or did he write Red Dragon first?
Oh,
I think he might have wrote Red Dragon first, actually.
I think
He wrote Hannibal afterwards because that's when he went prequel. No prequel. When he wrote
yes,
Hannibal Rising afterwards, that was like very
yeah,
prequel.
no, it was Red Dragon and then Hannibal Rising. Yeah,
Yeah, no, but was it Hannibal Rising? Was that Red Dragon first that he wrote, and then Silence of the Lambs?
yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm half sure now. Now that you're like asking me on the fly, I think it was Red Dragon first though.
So I feel like one of the things that happens where you can go into the past is a bit of a problem because obviously Thomas Harris went into that and tried to explain it with Hannibal Rising and caused problems for Hannibal Lecter. And I think famously his hands were pretty much like tied up to kind of do that story. I think prequel would probably be the route that you want to go with Max because you can't really mess with the continuity after the game, because you'd have to tell a story like Vicelli does, where it's like it's a single canon, it's a canon in an infinite universe of canon possibilities. It's not the definitive canon, and then you tell a story from that. My one would be, and it would be very. I don't think people really like it. I know some people have really loved it, some people don't. Mine would really be taking parts of Double Exposure but modifying it because I would really like the game to be told from a position where Safi, for example, was the main protagonist, and we used her shape-shifting powers, and you played the entire game as Max. And the big reveal was playing as Max, because for me, the message I'm telling you is nostalgia, and also that kind of like expectation 10 years later, do we really bring back Max Caulfield? Because how many times do we enjoy sequels for classic things? Like Happy Gilmore 2 has just come out. I've seen some of the reviews. I'm like, this doesn't need to exist. This is just milking nostalgia now. Like Happy Gilmore was fine as a standalone interest. You're just doing it now because we're in sequel bait. We're in sequel, not sequel bait. We're in sequel nostalgia era. Yeah, milking the cow. And I think that's what I want to tell with Max, for example, in a sequel game where it's like you have someone who's playing as her as a shapeshifter, and then you have like little nods to the franchise where it's like, if she's teaching a lesson and she does like a Jefferson transference style thing where she's like, "Oh, you're taking a selfie," and then she repeats Jefferson's line, but she does a little slip up where she says something factually incorrect, and it's like, oh, actually, there's like a little crack that shows you it's not actually Max. But at the same time, it puts the fandom up, their hands up in the air, being like, "Oh my god, I can't believe they messed up! I can't believe they messed up that reference." It's like, no, we're kind of doing that as a breaking the fourth wall moment, because it's like it's an intentional mess up, but we're also doing it to acknowledge the fact that you guys are very receptive towards the lore of the history of the franchise, and we know that we make messing up and mistakes sometimes, and we're just acknowledging that it can happen here. But there's also a bigger picture, which is the fact that it's not Max, and I think that's the one I would really like to tell. Where it's like you could do an impactful game where people are like, hang on a minute, she's a little bit off. She sounds like Hannah Tell. She is Hannah Tell. But why is she not acting like Max? She's a little bit different. She's not got all her traits. And it's like you can tell that story where it's actually someone else pretending to be Max, where they embody that. Like, a shapeshifter pretending to be Max in a future story would be quite fascinating, because it's like, hang on a minute, like, oh, this makes sense why Max isn't acting the way she is. And then it's also like, then the ultimate question is like, the fact that we just made a game about nostalgia, and did you enjoy it? No, clearly, because you weren't playing as Max. But it's like, if we had brought back Max, would you have enjoyed it doing that as an adult Max? It's like, no, you wouldn't have enjoyed it, because logically where the game ends.
Yeah.
And I think about it because I think with Double Exposure, those little tweaks could have fixed that game. Because I remember pitching my idea. It's like they thought there was a really good idea of like that entire spin of like Max being, Safi being Max the entire game, and it's that reveal at the end where she like reveals herself, like that entire impactful sequence where Diamond is at the top of the place, and she's got the nosebleed. Imagine she turns around and she just sees Max. She's like, "What are you doing here?" And then just like slowly, it strips back that entire camouflage. It's Safi, and she's holding the cigarette, and you're like, "Oh, actually, that's why Max is smoking a cigarette, because it's not actually Max." And it's like, God damn, and then you tell from that as well. The other theme is that it's another coming of age story, which is that a shapeshifter has their own coming of age story because they've shed their skin and they've become their own person because they've pretended to be themselves. And I think that heavily is inspired by X-Men, for example, because of like, I know people are going crazy. The X-Men, the Avengers are uniting. No, it's heavily inspired by Raven in the X-Men series, which I thought was really interesting, the way she's done. And when Michael Fassbender's Magneto's like, he's like, I want to see the real Raven. And he's like, and she keeps changing her skin. Then she eventually shows me, it's like perfection, that meme.
Perfection.
And it's like,
yeah,
that's what I'd like to tell. I would like to tell a story where it challenges nostalgia, and then also the idea, do you really want another game with Max? And when you see what happens, you're like, oh, actually, that's an interesting twist to be thrown in there. More themes, more things, but I think like probably that, and you'd have to tell it as a canon and then go from there. But you could be smart with it. That you could, with the shape-shifting thing, you could be smart because it makes sense with all the Chloe stuff that happens, the fact that everything's going disruptive in the powers. You can even explain why this new character has different powers as well, like the fact that it's a shapeshifter pretending to be a character who already has powers breaks that power, and because of it and the shapeshift into them, they create all kinds of different powers because of it. God only knows.
Yeah.
So there's an idea. There's an idea in there somewhere. I'm not very much of a storyteller, but it's just a thought.
Yeah.
As it is. Adam, should we go into our next question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is an interesting one. I'll answer this first because I'll let you get a bit of time to answer it as well. So Adam, as you can see there, Kevin Lackner said, express the current Life is Strange situation with a Simpsons meme.
Ha!
So I will go first here and I'll show you mine whilst you find one of yourself. I think this is the most important one. I think you're going to be finding it very difficult to peek this one. So Adam, you'll probably remember the sequence. Krusty the Clown, where he's there and he's watching the Itchy and Scratchy. Well, he doesn't have Itchy the Scratchy. Itchy and Scratchy goes to another network and it's replaced by, I think, was it like some Italian cartoon or something that's replaced by? And he like what he puts it on, and he's like that, and it cuts back to him. He's like, "What the hell was that?" And it's like cigarette, iconic meme. I think it's up there. So that's my pick for this.
I got one.
You got one?
Yeah.
Looking forward to this.
This has layers to it.
Ooh, okay. I love layers. Oh, yes. Very good.
That's pretty much the situation we're in right now. Just like,
for the listeners, it's Mr. Burns as Jimbo when he's popping in through the door at the school.
How do you do, fellow Life is Strange fans?
I like that one. I thought I'd peep. That's actually a very good one. There you go. The Simpsons memes continue. Adam, I'll bleed into our next question. We'll be very careful with this one as well. So this is from Kevin. I'm going to rephrase this question. So Kevin's put, why does Square, allegedly, in brackets I'm putting here, hate Chloe so much? Doesn't know their own franchise / doesn't know what the fans really want, and worst of all, allegedly lied to their fans, e.g. the Chloe situation. So let me rephrase this as well. Square there is no proof online that is suggesting that Square hate Chloe Price. This is a lot of fan theory and speculation built on a lot of other things. They didn't lie in the marketing specifically like that, so they never answered it directly. And John Stauder, the former game director, and Felice Kwan, the former narrative director, directed certain questions in a different way, which is that implied that Chloe was part of the game, but wasn't specifically the main arching point of the game, where it is what people want at the end of it. So I'm just lacing that with very big allegeds and a lot of other things. But Adam, let's rephrase that to where Square Enix's perception of Chloe. Where do we stand on that?
So I do think that not just Square hates it, but like there are pockets of the community that like hate Chloe, right?
Yeah.
Thinking that she is too egotistical, too narcissistic, too edgy, right? I don't think, but here's my theory. And I know I just said like, oh, Adam hates theories. Here is my theory. I don't think that Square Enix hates Chloe, right? Here's my theory. I don't think they know what to do with Chloe.
Yeah.
Because she is just like such a complex character. And in a way that like Zach Garris, and I know there was like a report that he said like, oh, we made Chloe likable right? To like some extent, like he said that, like that's not verbatim, but he pretty much said like, oh, with our game, like we gave more understanding with Chloe. What is there to like not understand? You know, there's a lot of writers that like will go up to like a Chloe character and just not know what to do with this character, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and even with Ashley Birch saying that like oh, she likes Rachel Moore. Oh, she's polyamorous. I could see that happening. Like even the actress that played Chloe doesn't really know what to do. So that's my theory. It's just like Chloe is just such a I don't want to say an unwritable character, but you put it into the wrong hands and it become and I think that's why Before the Storm is so polarizing.
Yeah.
You know, like you don't know what to do. What do you think about that?
No, it's an interesting import because I think like you hit the nail on the head. She's a very polarizing character, and she's one of the supporting characters of a main character, and she's not as like universally loved in the same way. Like I'm being very careful with this. She's not universally loved in the same way as Steph Gingrich, where people just like really love Steph, and it was like, oh, she's not
Well,
nowhere near as popular as
everybody
Steph.
except for
Like
you.
she's nowhere near as popular as like Steph is nowhere near as popular as Chloe as a character.
Because Steph
But
is more of a canvas character. You
yeah,
can't really do anything with Steph because she is like cool record shop owner. Like I don't want
well,
to say that Steph is two dimensional,
I was
but
gonna say she's
you
one dimensional. Funny you said that
yeah,
as well.
exactly. Uh I don't want to say that but because Steph is such a cool, calm, collected character, you really
Mm,
can like put any story behind her. But because Chloe is so damaged, th-
yeah,
there's there's not much you can really do with that character
yeah,
other than like venture into that damage. Is what Before the Storm did. You ventured into that damage. You saw
yeah.
what the damage is, but to make her a character, what do you do? You know?
Yeah, no, I think you're right with that because I think like Steph is very one dimensional. She's very easy to write for what she's doing, what
Mhm.
her place in the story is. Chloe is very volatile and volatile in the way that what you want to tell with the story with her, how she's perceived. She's very much divided. Like you basically have an end game of the first one where it's almost a 50-50 divide on the fact that how people end the game. So one ending is where she is dead, the other one she's still alive. And there's a lot of sentimental connection to Chloe. There's also a lot of like deep dislike towards Chloe. I think the worst part is that you kind of skirt away from a character like that because those are the characters that are interesting. We can kind of like make more of the story out of them. Um, it doesn't surprise me as well. I think like Square struggles without Ashley Birch's presence there because they haven't brought her back from another role. I think the Rihanna DeVries performance is good for Before the Storm. It's not good
Yes.
for older Chloe. I don't think she would. I don't think Rihanna works as an older Chloe in my opinion. At least I think that they could have done easy substitutes. I think Gabriella could have been Chloe as an older version. Chloe's mocap actor from the first Life is Strange. I think she's got the vibe. I've spoken to her. I think she could easily step into Ashley Birch's shoes and do an older Chloe Price version if you wanted to do the character. But I feel like they don't want to recast it. They don't want to go down that route. It feels like obviously we've heard the noise about focus groups and whatnot. It wouldn't surprise me if you get focus group receptions where people don't like the character and then you make a decision off that and you go down that story. Chloe is just a very difficult character to write for, and I think that's the other problem which happens as well because amid already dealing with Ashley Birch outside of the hands of Jean-Luc Carnot and Michel Coe, it's very hard for someone to write Chloe because she's a very complex character. And I would argue the same way with Max as well. I think DE showed, for example, where Max lacks a lot of subtle nuances and a lot of key elements that make her Max Caulfield because it's changed hands from one creator to the other, and it's not got that same style and flair. Um, and this happens in mediums. Look at Star Wars, for example. Look at how Rian Johnson's Luke Skywalker is depicted compared to the Lucas version or the other versions of Luke.
Or
And
the
then
J.J. Abrams one.
even in that, even in that first that part of that film, like that's why JJ Abrams was smart. He's like, I'm not touching Luke, so he moved off and like just did Force
Yeah,
Awakens without him. He's like, I'm not gonna get any of that smoke. Um,
yeah,
it's very hard to write a character who's like layered. She has a lot of layers. She's like it's like Shrek, where he's like onions have layers to Donkey.
yes.
And that's like Chloe. She has layers after layers and layers. And unless you're willing to tackle those layers and really peel them back and then start telling that story, it becomes really difficult to tell a story around Chloe. I think that's why Square doesn't want to go near her. And then also the perception people have, etc. But it's very hard because you leave a massive chasm behind and you can't tell the story, because then, for example, when they're telling a story about Chloe and they're trying to do the text and stuff in double exposure, it comes across as even more like, it comes across as terrible. They've read the situation wrong.
What Square's answer is like, oh yeah, she dead. She dead.
That's what it feels like. So it's just a bit of a weird one in the way it plays out. So yeah, I think they find it very difficult to kind of like position her. And I think like outside of obviously Before the Storm, I think the less preachy version of Before the Storm is the comics with Emma Vicelli's writing, with what she's doing with two Chloes, and it shows you how you have to handle different Chloes because they're different in the way that they handle their personalities and how they act. And I think that's why, for example, Ashley Birch's thing about Chloe being polyamorous doesn't work. Because if you go and read the comics, it's like, no, she would never be a polyamorous, because even Emma's interpretation of Chloe is not that she's polyamorous. It's like you can see how much connection that Chloe has to either Rachel Amber or Max Caulfield, depending on which Chloe you're talking about. So it is very interesting nonetheless. Adam, should we wrap up here so we can pick up the rest of the questions in our side B episode and we can go from there?
Let's do one more question.
Yes, let's do one more then, and then we'll. I think you are answering to the audience, so let's pull this one up. So Adam, last question from this side A, and there it is from Kevin, where it says, "What do you think about this? Max always could have used her rewind power in DE, but never chose to. But she can still rewind double exposure, hopefully."
Max could have.
Max always could have used her power in rewind power in DE, but never chose to. But she can still rewind in double exposure.
According to the writing, no, she can't. But like, let's talk about reality here. Yes, she can. It's not like she lost. When in the original Life is Strange did she lose her power to rewind? Right. I think at the end, the canon ending where Chloe dies, and Pompidou lives. But either way, right? Both endings, it sets off with Chloe dying and Chloe living. She sees the damage that her rewind powers did. Let's go into the canon ending. I'm just screwing with all of you. Let's go with the ending where Chloe dies. Right? You choose the town. Max is at that funeral, and you see the remorse, and not in tears, right? But you see that remorse and just saying like the reality that like, what have I done? Right? What have I gotten everybody into that I kept rewinding, and chooses not to go forward? Let's say that Chloe lives in that ending. You drive off and you see Max looking out the window, right? And just seeing the damage that her powers have done. Neither ending does Max lose her powers. All Max sees is that my powers have caused damage, and manipulating my choices causes damage. I do believe that she always could have used her rewind powers, but chooses not to because of the trauma that she sees. We could have dealt with that in double exposure if you wanted to be a game all about trauma, but you didn't. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm at. Like, like in reality, nowhere did Max lose her powers. Like, I don't believe so.
I think, and everything you just said was basically the motif of the first game, which was choices have consequences. And I think that's where Max gets to at the end of the game. Like, even when I think about it as well, even we said like trauma and doing it, you could explore that in double exposure. Like, there could have been one moment where she like puts her hand out and she does this slowly and she opens her hand like this. And then you could literally go to a close up of the camera and she does this instead. And she moves her hand back into it. And it's like, you have that moment where it shows reflection of your character, knowing that she can't do this because of the repercussions that come from it. So it's like that kind of thing where you're basically showing your character has evolved and they understand the repercussions of it. So she goes like that, and you can see that she's about to do it, and she's about to like do that, and then she closes her hand up into a fist. And it's those kind of like little moments which reflect that your character has evolved, has understanding. You look at certain mediums, different stories, like Old Man Logan, for example. Like, you see that story that's told with him. Like, look at the way he's like perceived and the way he's doing things. Like his adamantium is now failing on him. He's aging. The X-Men are dying. Like all the genetic mutants are like disappearing off the face of the earth. And you see the story about this old person who's like just gone through trial and tribulation and has faced trauma among many other things to deal with that. I think that's the interesting thing with Max, where, as you said, when you get to both endings, whether it's Bay or Bay, and the way you set up the next game, you can tell a lot about her story because of who she is, where she's at, how she feels on either end of those games, and what that does on the perception of what her powers can possibly do. And you have to make it a reason. It's like when she does that thing where she jumps in and out of the photo in double exposure during the sequence after Oldman, and it shows there's no accountability for the character to understand why they're doing this. They're just doing it for the sake of it. And then you have the sequences with Alderman and the telescope where she can just rewind time if she gets caught. And it's a little bit on the nose, but you're like, hang on a minute. You said her powers were atrophied, and then you've evolved them into a rewind. You've evolved them into a splitting timeline power. And it's like, you've kind of destroyed quite easily a power that could have been controlled, but you did it in a very smart way. I think like that's the evolution where you could have done something where it's like, I think the more interesting mechanic could easily have been, if you were going to do something and you didn't want to touch Max's rewind power, is you give her a fast forward mechanic. So instead her powers evolve where she grabs onto someone as she projects ahead and she can see their future. And it's like, that's the interesting part, because you're like, hang on a minute, you've evolved her power into the parameters of what her actual power is. And then it gives you a reason for it. Because like, she wouldn't have any repercussion about fast forwarding time in terms of, she'll look at it and be like, oh, actually I can hold on to this person and I can realize that. So she grabs onto Safi and she's like, oh shit. And she's like, I can see that she's going to die in the future. And then she's like, oh, well, also if I change this, will this not be the same as I did last time if I was rewinding time? That's where you could have done things. And it's like, and the worst part is, and this is with Kevin, if Double Exposure sequel gets to the end where it's like she just rewinds time, it's so cheap. It's so cheap. You can't. I'm sorry, you can't do it. You can't do it because people will be even more peeved off. Like, what was the point of telling the story in the first place if you rewind everything? It's like you've boxed yourself into corners with that story. You really have, and you can't rewind it. And it's weird because, again, I don't know how the game, like the way DE ends, and we'll go into side B when we talk about it. You've basically atrophied her first power, which is rewind. And then on top of that, she can't split timelines anymore because you merged the timeline. So what power does she have anymore? It's not specifically said that she loses the power. Max says herself, she's like, I can't do that anymore because the timelines have merged. So what happens next then? And it's like, why were you messing around with this? This was such an easy power where you could have done things where it works really easily. And it's like, they just didn't tell it. That game would have been fascinating just to tell from a perspective where Max keeps doing something like that, where she tries to rewind time and then she's like, no, I'm not going to do it. She's like, I can't do it because of what happens. It's like, I've seen it time and time again, but she just reacts like that. And also as well, let me just say something. One thing that always confused me with during the rewinding thing and like, the atrophy powers and stuff. And when she splits the timeline because she senses the other Safi in the main courtyard area, why didn't she just do this when Safi died on the observatory? Like, she's in shock, she's in trauma response again. At that point, it would make sense for her to try and do it there and then to do it, but no. Again, the plot doesn't suffice at that point, so we're just going to move it later into the game and do that. I'm just a bit like, oh come on, man. Oh God almighty. So Adam, I think we should end here then, because we can end the first part here. So thank you for joining us, guys. I hope you enjoyed the first part of Patreon. Let us know what your feelings are on any of the Patreon submission questions we answered. Stay tuned for side B, because we'll talk about more of those questions that are submitted, some of the interesting ones in there as well. If you are someone who wants to get involved, please do sign up to the Patreon, because next month, August, will open up again, where we have a Patreon episode at the end of the month and you can submit questions. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you are new here, please do consider dropping a subscribe on the channel, turn notifications, like the video, share your friends, and help us get to 2,100 subscribers. It'll be amazing to get to that point. And StrangeCast is available on all podcast services. So we're available on Spotify with a video version, Apple Podcasts. Go and check us out there. Go and rate us and get access to the episodes as soon as they're available when they get released. So yeah, stay tuned for side B. We're going to continue with the questions. There's a lot more to be answered there. Until next time, guys. See you later. Bye.
Later.
Ready for the mosh pit, Shaka Bra.